Well, we've cleared out the old shed and the greenhouse, we've dug out the garden, so now it's time to start building. But what construction style are we going to choose? Find out here in part 3 of my new garden office. Hi, I'm Gary and welcome to my channel. In the third program of the series, I'm looking at the different construction styles you can use to make your new garden office or workshop. The 4 styles I'm looking at are timber frame, steel frame, masonry and prefabricated. Each has its own pros and cons. We're starting with the traditional timber frame building. This is a relatively simple construction, essentially a bespoke garden shed but with added insulation. It's very much like the shed we used to have here. It's easy to design indoors and windows, and there are plenty of joiners and carpenters around who'd be able to build the room to your design. Adding insulation foam boards between the studwork is simple and effective. Properly built timber frame rooms have a good thermal insulation all year round. You can line the room with boards or you can opt for a plasterboard depending on the quality of finish you desire. Because of the skeletal nature of the framing, it's easy to run electrics to wherever they're needed during the build, and it's relatively easy to make alterations at a later date should you wish to. On the outside, the frame is covered with timber sheathing, then a breathable membrane. Battens can be attached so cladding can be put on, either natural wood cladding such as cedar or a composite material. Wood is, of course, a sustainable resource if purchased from a respectable source, and the natural appearance of timber is appealing and can fit in well in a garden setting. However, it should be remembered that wood requires regular maintenance to keep its properties, such as treating against weather, rot or insects, no matter what the original treatment of the timber was. In our experience, the void between the floor joists in the timber building can offer a very attractive home for pests such as mice or rats if you have them in your area, as they can easily chew through the wood at the base. Also, in the UK at least, good quality timber is a pretty expensive building item, and a good and reliable carpenter or joiner won't be cheap. When you are looking into this option, do discuss any requirement for ground preparation as well. You may need some sort of paved or concrete base, although a popular alternative is using several large screw-like piles to support the base. So, in summary, timber frame buildings are simple to make and make later alterations, and they offer good thermal insulation. Purchased from the right place, timber is a sustainable resource and looks natural in a garden setting. However, the timber does require maintenance to keep its looks, is prone to pest problems, and in the UK at least, quality timber and good workers are expensive. If you want something that feels more substantial, you might look at a steel-framed construction. These are increasingly popular as the strength of steel allows for quite exciting design options with large openings such as full-width bifold doors. Steel requires minimal upkeep and provides excellent resistance to pests. Combined with well-sourced glass, a steel-framed office can look very attractive. It could be an ideal solution if the office is going to have a dual function such as a summer house. But steel framing is relatively expensive. Even with double glazed glass areas, the thermal efficiency of steel is not as good as some other building methods, and the costs can be high, especially if opting for self-cleaning or energy efficient glass. The room can get very hot in the summer, need large sliding doors or air conditioning to be usable, and the large amount of light could be challenging for computer screen visibility. You need to think about privacy and security as well, where there is so much on show. Finally, you need to think about site accessibility. Can the larger, heavier pieces of the steel frame be delivered to the proposed site of the room? Also, do check out the requirements for ground and site preparation, as these can be costly. Overall, steel framing is strong and durable. Its structural properties allow for large open areas such as bifold doors and needs very little maintenance, especially with modern glass. However, this comes at a cost of relatively poor thermal efficiency, a relatively high price, especially with specialist glass, and there may be light and privacy issues. Third is masonry construction, in essence using traditional building techniques for the office space. A brick-built garden room is certainly going to last a long time. Think about how long your house might have been around already. Maintenance is very low as the brickwork needs very little attention. Masonry buildings are very strong and offer very high thermal inertia, meaning it takes a long time to change their temperature, so they are typically cool in the summer and warm in the winter compared with other styles. Normally the cost of construction will include the preparation of the site, clearance, digging out of footings and foundations and so on. But this does mean it might appear expensive at first sight compared with other options. Usually for this size building the walls would be single thickness of brick or blocks with an interior wooden frame with insulation on the inside and covered with plasterboard. The exterior can be covered with battens and cladding or can be rendered and painted with a silicone product for weatherproofing. Remember also that a masonry garden room will be considered a permanent structure under building regulations, so do seek professional advice about the size and placement of your room to ensure it meets national and local regulations. So on the plus side, a masonry garden room will last for ages, pretty much as long as your house. They'll require little or no maintenance and offer very good thermal and sound insulation. However, the cost may appear high, but do factor in ground preparation that will be included in the overall cost. Construction may also take 6 to 8 weeks or longer, and you do have to take greater account of planning and permissions as these are considered permanent structures. Then we come to prefabricated rooms. There are two main styles of these, the off-the-shelf prefab design and the bespoke pre-manufactured style. Off-the-shelf garden rooms are available from many high street DIY stores. These are typically delivered ready to assemble, so you will either need to do that yourself or hire someone to build it for you. This option is relatively cheap and does come with insulation, normally foam board. But the insulation properties will depend on how well the office is assembled and if joints are properly sealed, especially at corners or the roof joint. And the room can get very hot in summer as the thermal inertia is relatively low. The strength of the building again relies on the quality of the construction, and as timber structures they have the same requirements as timber framed rooms for treatment of the wood and the same potential issues with pests, including rodents, beneath the floor. The ground on which the room sits will have to be prepared. Many people place them on a levelled and paved area as the room itself is relatively light and doesn't require large foundations. Again, ground screws are an option. A timber prefab room is cost effective and can be assembled quickly on site, although off-site manufacture may delay the start of the build if you're having any custom options. The result is predictable as well. You can often see completed example at showrooms. However, there's a very limited opportunity to make alterations to the design. The build quality and insulation is dependent on who assembles it, and you have the same issues as bespoke timber framing with pest control and maintenance. The second type of prefabricated garden room uses structurally insulated panels or SIPs. These panels consist of an insulated foam bonded between two layers of wooden board. This offers very good insulation and they're very structurally stable. The site will need good preparation. Most companies require a concrete slab to be poured to a certain specification, although this is usually a domestic strength concrete that most builders can supply. The building itself sits on either wooden or steel joists and the floor is normally insulated. Because everything is made off-site, the final construction can be fairly quick. The panels are very thermally efficient as they're effectively airtight, but this brings its own problems. Good ventilation is required to prevent mould, rot or mildew, to which SI panels can be prone, even if finished with a waterproof coating. This is often in the form of a mechanical ventilator with heat recovery. Because the panels are sealed, it's very difficult to make alterations in the future should you wish to. Adding water or changing electrical supply is difficult, and interior cable runs or pipes need to be either surface mounted or hidden behind trunking or false walls. Finally, SIPs can be relatively costly to purchase. However, energy savings relative to other constructions could see some payback in the longer term. In summary then, SIPs offer excellent thermal insulation and very quick on-site construction, although again construction of the prefab units at the factory will mean a longer lead time for the project. Finished rooms can have a modern yet natural aesthetic depending on the cladding used. However, SIPs are relatively costly upfront and require mechanical ventilation to prevent moisture damage. Alterations are extremely limited, and services such as electricity often need to be surface mounted. Finally, the requirements for ground preparation may be exacting. So looking at all of that, our choice basically was between masonry and SIP prefab, and we've gone with masonry. This is going to be used every day, this building. It wants a good permanence to it. It needs good thermal insulation, it needs good security, it needs good noise insulation, partly because of the traffic here, but also because you've got a junior school at the back of the house. It needs to be pretty low maintenance because frankly I'm really rubbish at DIY, I don't enjoy it at all. And the shell construction that we can have with a masonry means that we can make adjustments to the size of the storage area whenever we like in the future. Best of all, given the surrounding conditions here, there's no chance of getting rodents like rats and mice underneath the floor. Ain't going to chew through brick. The price was very competitive because all of the digging out and site prep was included in the price because it's being built from scratch, and it was actually cheaper than an SIP if we looked at it all together, taking all these things into consideration. It was built to a good schedule and also with builders that we know because they've done work for us before. So masonry it is. Next episode we'll start looking at the foundations. Thanks very much for watching today. Hope to see you again soon. Goodbye.